Welcome back to the Sex Den podcast. You are here with your hosts, Lauren and Camille, aka the Den Mothers on Instagram. I haven't said that in a little while.
Oh, yeah.
So, our combined page for the podcast, so that you don't miss any drops, is at the Den Mothers. Our personal pages are She Wolf Lauren and Camille Joanne XO.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hey. Today we are talking about how to mitigate negative self-talk and how to stop hating men.
Whoa, it's a good one.
Wow. I know that personally, I've had a couple women lately just tell me, no, I just hate all men and they're awful.
Yeah. I hated men so much in my past.
Fortunately, I've never hated men.
Yeah, if it's happened to me, it probably hasn't happened to Camille and vice versa.
Yeah.
I hated men so much.
Yeah. I actually went through a tiny phase where I hated men, and then Lauren helped me through it, and I will tell you how.
Okay.
Yeah. During that segment, of
Got it.
course.
Okay.
Yeah. So welcome back to the Sex Den. We are so excited to have you for another week.
Yay.
Ow, ow, ow! Woohoo! So, just a quick reminder, if you want extra exclusive content, if you want to hear some bonus Q&As, see some more stuff from our childhood, because we post some really fun stuff on our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
You can join us for $11.11 a month. You are also entered into a raffle each month to potentially win a 2-on-1 session with the Den Mothers.
Yeah, and we just had our session with our first winner, and it was so wonderful. We took a
Yeah.
selfie from the session, so we'll post it on our Patreon page.
Yeah.
But it's just so wonderful to be able to connect with you 2-on-1 and to just hear your stories and how long you've been listening and everything.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And also, our Patreon member who won was just an absolute gem.
Yeah,
So
such
it
an
was,
angel.
Yeah, it was such a great experience to meet and just have a conversation one-on-one. So if you want to be entered in the next raffle, that raffle is happening on November 1st. So go to patreon.com/thesexden to join our membership today.
Yes.
Woohoo! All right, let's get cracking. Let's get
cracking.
into it. So we've talked about this before, but this is just a recurring concern and question for so many listeners, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. It is for so many people in the whole world.
Yeah. How to mitigate negative self-talk. And let me just tell you that this is a journey that I feel like you have to practice for your whole life.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start too.
Yeah.
Is that I feel in general this might actually be whoops, are we going to do our weekly update?
Oh my gosh.
Because I was just going to jump in, but I didn't feel ready.
Holy crap. That makes sense. I was feeling like we were missing something, and how dare us?
Yeah.
Do you know why this is funny? Because last week we were a little late on recording, so this is really like a 4-day update.
Right.
Yes, but I think some fun stuff has happened in the meantime. So let's start with weekly update quickly. Susie?
Okay. My weekly update is as follows. I've been healing from not a spiritual sickness, but
Yeah.
I have been healing from being sick still. I couldn't believe it. So I've been feeling so much better. We went to Cacao this morning and just really enjoyed ourselves.
I'm sorry. Can I just take a quick break and say that Lauren is addicted to cacao?
I gave up caffeine.
Yes.
And let me tell you, well, I didn't fully give it up. Did we talk about that on a podcast episode?
No, not really.
When did I
Oh,
talk
wait.
about that?
I do think you actually said your body. Yes, we did. Your body was telling you no more caffeine. You were healing your gut.
Yes.
So here we are.
Okay. Yes. So I have caffeine maybe like once every 2 weeks now, and it will be in the form of like a green tea, or if I really want to, I'll get a specialty coffee over at Leafs.
Wow.
Which shout out Leafs to our friends Thomas and Fem.
Yes.
We love Leafs.
LIEFS. The
In
best
Tulum.
coffee
Yeah.
in Tulum.
If you come to Tulum, you gotta go to Leafs.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I stopped drinking coffee, but I found a new passion, and my new passion is cacao. So I love going to get cacao. I think it's so much fun, and it's like a little special date with my sister and other locals.
Yeah, cacao is really interesting, and it actually has less caffeine than even matcha.
No, I don't think it has any caffeine.
Yeah, No, that's right. I looked it up and it said, "No, it's not caffeine.
There's
It's just
no
this
caffeine.
cacao bean,
Yeah.
and it tastes like a mixture of hot chocolate and heaven."
Yeah, it's like hot chocolate heaven, and you get a little bit of an acidic kick like you would with coffee. Not a bad acidic, but you know what I mean? It's like a little bit,
Yeah.
not tart, but
Yeah.
just
Oh,
different.
yeah, I know what word
It's
you're looking
not
for, and I
super
can't find it
sweet.
either.
I don't
Yeah.
like super sweet stuff.
No.
So anyway, it is just so good, and so I like to make it a point to
Yeah.
go there, you know?
Lauren lives 5 minutes from the best one in Tulum, so she's been going almost every day.
I love it so much.
And I cut out caffeine too, other than like matchas here and there. So having a little morning ritual drink, there is something special about it.
I love it. Yeah, and it's my favorite place to go brainstorm for the podcast. And so that's where we brainstormed today for this episode.
Yeah, so we went today,
Yeah.
which is so fun. And did you have any other weekly update?
You know what? I had something to say to
Yeah.
the audience. So I have never been a big movie gal.
Ah,
Shane and I, for whatever reason, since we moved to Tulum, we kind of went through a hibernation phase when we first got here where it
Yeah.
felt like we couldn't do anything else. And if you haven't been to Tulum, it's kind of a vortex location. And I don't mean
Mhm.
kind of actually. I mean full blown get ready to have your socks knocked off if you
Yeah.
come here for more than about a month, or even it could be 2 weeks.
As you said, it was a spiritual body slam.
It's a spiritual body slam. When you show
Yeah.
up to Tulum, we have a friend who just came and she's like, I'm so sorry that I didn't get to spend time with you. She got spiritually body slammed, like hard.
But everybody does.
Everybody does. If you're here for not just to party for the weekend, because you might not feel it, but if you're here for about a week or more, you will be spiritually body slammed. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I had like a
Hibernation.
30-day
Yeah.
initiation spiritual body slam right when we first got here. And Shane and I picked up movie watching. We had never been movie watchers. And I am just here to say that I've watched more movies in the past 30 days, 45 days after being sick and everything. And
Yeah.
I love movies.
Yeah. We were movie deprived
Totally.
when we were younger.
Media deprived.
Yeah, we were media deprived, which in so many ways is great because I almost feel like we get to watch all these movies for the first time as adults when you're actually retaining the information.
Yeah.
Except for something weird about it is because we weren't movie people, actually movies sort of just go in one ear and out the other. I am so captivated by the experience of the movie, and I have these favorite movies, but I literally could not tell you one main character's name.
I know.
It's really weird. It's like my brain doesn't register movies other than, do I like how I feel when I'm watching it or do I not?
Right. Mine too.
Yeah. So I'm like, I love Avatar. That's my favorite movie, I would say. And I could not tell you a single character's name.
Well, that's because they speak in a series of clicks.
No, they have real names.
Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha.
I'm pretty sure.
No, ashwagandha. You know what ashwagandha is?
It's a root.
Yeah. It's a superfood. Anyways.
It's like a chia seed.
Yeah, it's like a juicy. Spirulina. No, they do have names of which I cannot remember.
Jake. Sully.
Maybe is one.
Sully's one.
Okay.
Jake.
See?
Jake Sully is his name.
Okay.
We can remember Jake Sully.
Okay. I'm getting an energetic rush right now from the cacao. I feel like I'm about to have a panic attack.
Are you really? Do you want to take a break?
Nope. I'm going to push through it and just see what happens.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say about Jake Sully is that I have figured out that I have to watch movies with subtitles or else I can't even really follow along the plot anymore. I don't even know what's happening if I'm not able to read it too. So
Wow.
I've been loving subtitles. And then the other day I got a little bit sad, feeling like maybe if I'm reading that I'm not enjoying. I don't know.
Oh, I think you're doing just exactly what you need to be doing.
Are you doing okay?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about what a panic attack feels like?
Yeah, let's just talk about it since it's kind of happening to me. A panic attack in my body feels like this overwhelming rush of adrenaline.
Okay.
My heart starts to beat a little faster. I'm very aware of all of my senses, and things sort of start to look like they're in HD.
Okay.
I can hear there's this kind of hammering happening in the back, which is really, you probably can't hear it. I'm seeing it's not registering on our mics,
Yeah.
but I can hear everything really clearly. And when I start to take notice of my body, I actually start to feel that I'm breathing in a really shallow manner. So when I get
Mm.
really excited and I'm kind of rushing around to do stuff, my body seems to be overwhelmed. So I can recognize what's going on and start pulling breath deeper into my belly and kind of just slow down my actions, and then hopefully the feeling will go away. And if it doesn't, the thing that's really changed my life in terms of panic attacks is actually welcoming them in.
Mm.
Before I would have this like, oh my god, I'm gonna have a panic attack during the podcast recording, it's gonna be so weird. And now it's like, if it happens, it just happens. It's a part of life.
Wow.
It's fine. And Shane, Lauren's fiance, who's also my spiritual teacher, basically, he's the one who said that. Just kind of be like, bring it on. I'm so ready for you.
Right. Yeah.
And smiling through it actually helps, letting your body know that the feeling of that's kind of building is not, you're not scared of it. You're just, okay, if it happens, it happens. And
Mm.
usually that kind of helps to stop it happening.
Wow. I've never seen you have one still. I don't
No.
think I've ever been around you when you've had
No.
one.
It usually happens at night. I actually haven't had one in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was happening very rarely before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of like December, and then one happened in like June. So they're spacing out much more.
Wow. It's
I'm
so
feeling okay.
interesting. I've never had one in my own body. So it's just interesting to hear your perception of it
Yeah.
or like what it feels like.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
But yeah, now I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of passing.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll give my little weekly update.
Okay.
Is that the most exciting thing is my freediving experience.
Yes. Oh, jelly.
Yeah, so I finally got back into the water. So my first freedive training was a couple weeks ago. Then I got sick, so I was having a sinus thing. Then Lauren's birthday, so it had been a couple weeks since I got to do a training session, and I went yesterday, and I free dove 22 meters down,
Wow.
which is 70 feet. Yes. And that was my personal best. And it is the most wonderful. I just can't explain how much the sport, it's kind of a sport.
It's totally a sport.
Yeah, it's a sport. It feels like it is made for my body.
I know.
Because you practice, I've been practicing meditation and breath work for so long, and it's a way to really tie everything together, this spiritual aspect, calming the mind, and doing something physical with your body, and being in the water, which is my favorite place.
Yeah.
So it's this really spiritual experience. We were in the water for like almost 4 hours, and you are pretty much meditating the entire time.
Right.
So if you have not seen free diving, it's going down as far as you can in depth, holding your breath. There's no oxygen involved. So you are doing this form of meditation where you're breathing really slowly, and then you sort of just go upside down and pull down this rope, holding your breath. And the more relaxed and meditated in a meditative state you can get, the better the dive is.
Yeah.
So I'll be posting some content to my Instagram showing my dive.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I can't wait to go with you.
I
Lauren,
know.
I haven't gone yet with Lauren and Shane. So we're going
Yeah.
next week with our dad.
With our dad. Yeah, our parents are coming this weekend. And yeah, when it comes to free diving, it's just like the most amazing thing. I can't wait to go and get some cool footage and just explore under the sea with you or under the cenotes. But I did want to say, and I wonder if you ever do this too, where I like to float on my stomach with my face in the water.
Yeah.
So there are different ways that you can like really do your
It's called
breathe
a
up.
breathe up.
It's called a
which is
breathe up.
preparing. Yeah, preparing for your dive.
Yeah, you do like deep belly breathing for 10 breaths, and then you do it just a series of breath holds or breath,
Yeah.
not holds, but inhales and exhales,
Yes.
basically, and rhythmic breathing.
Rhythmic breathing. That's a good
Anyway,
way to put it.
so I like to float on my stomach with my butt up in the air, basically, and just have my eyes open in my mask, and I pretend like I'm dead. I'm not joking. I'm like, how close to dead can I become? And I will float there on the surface, just like, how slow can my heart rate be? How deep can my breaths be? And
Yeah.
I swear, if somebody videoed me from the bottom up, they would be like, holy shit, this woman is like not okay. Because I try to pretend like I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I love it. It
I
is
actually
so
do too.
relaxing.
And you have a snorkel, so you're
Right.
like, you have this snorkel that's floating, you're facing down. That's how you prepare this breathe up. And you're just like floating there. And I try to be as dead as possible. Sometimes I close my eyes, sometimes I'm looking at the other people. And then all of a sudden you just take your snorkel out, put it up on the little buoy, and then you just like and
Yeah.
plummet down into the depths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear, by the time I actually die, I will be so ready for it.
Yeah.
And not like I'm wanting to die, but it's just that I feel like I practice it all the time. Just the most relaxed feeling.
I'm just thinking about this friend I have posted a meme the other day, and it was this guy floating like that, belly down in the pool. And it's like when you're a kid and you pretend like you are dead in the pool to see if your parents care.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I just remember doing that as a kid, and now I'm doing that as a sport.
Me too. I love it. And
Yeah.
I'm so excited to go with Dad.
Oh my God, me too.
So,
yeah, for those who don't know, our dad was a Navy SEAL.
yeah, he was a Navy SEAL and he had 2 daughters, and we were luckily both pretty athletic. You more than me. I
Yeah.
couldn't take it
We
seriously.
were both athletic.
But we're so excited to take him, and I know it's going to be the highlight of Shane's trip too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So anyway, we love free diving. It's so
Yay.
much fun.
I know.
And should we talk about some negative self-talk?
Let's get into negative self-talk. Okay, so let's talk negative self-talk. This is going to be a short segment because we have talked about it before.
Right.
And also, we just have some tips and tricks of how to mitigate this experience. So, what we were saying before we jumped back to our weekly update is that this is a lifetime journey.
Yeah, the thing is I don't know if it's a lifetime journey. Like, if you're going to constantly be having to, talk yourself out of talking shit to yourself.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's at first a big effort and a practice. Like, I'll have clients come to me and they're like, well, we'll be working together for a couple of weeks or whatever. And they're like, well, I just still am like basically hating myself and criticizing myself. And I'm like, yes, of course, because you've been criticizing yourself for 30 years. So now it takes some practice and effort. I'm like, how long have you been doing your affirmations every day? No. Have you been writing in your journal about your thoughts? No. Okay. Well, that has to begin now. It takes
Totally.
effort. It's effort. It's not just hearing this once and
Mm.
then being like, well, I should be fixed by now. It's like
Yeah.
the intention of loving your mind and your body.
Yeah. Same thing we kind of discussed on our last episode. It's this effort of coming back to presence.
Mhm.
And that means noticing when it's happening and continuing to do these things we're going to talk about over and over with no expectation of, okay, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and then I'm going to feel better. Just doing it with the intention of falling more in love with your body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And of yourself.
And your mind.
Like,
yeah.
the question that we received was around feelings of worthlessness, like self-worth, feeling not good enough, like you're not doing enough. And honestly, I had a really hard time with negative self-talk around my work ethic. So when I got out of grad school, I basically I had only known school for my whole life. I went right from high school, which I graduated early from, into college, which I graduated early from, and then immediately into grad school. And so I had known like how to achieve diplomas,
Yes.
basically. Like, I knew that
Accolades.
yeah, that formula worked really well for me, and when I got out of that, I basically floundered for, like, 6 years, trying to figure out what my work ethic was. Did I like working? Why did I always wanna quit the job I was in? Why would
Yes.
I, get a real estate license and never sell a house? It was like I had a lot of shit that I had started talking shit to myself about. A
Mm.
lot. Like, "You're
Mhm.
not a hard worker. You're, can't stick to anything. You start a project
Mm.
and you don't finish it." Like, I was talking to myself like that a lot. And one day I realized that I was doing that, which is, by the way, step number 1. So,
Mm.
if your self-talk is if you're not even registering your self-talk, that's the first part. It's noticing that you're talking negatively to yourself. It's
Yeah.
picking up on it, because some of
Mhm.
us will be like, "Yeah, my self-talk is bad," but when it's actually happening, we don't notice that it's happening.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah.
in reflection.
Yeah.
So it's catching yourself, noticing is the first part, and then replacing it with something. Replacing it with a deep breath.
Mm.
Replacing it with a mantra that can have nothing to do with what you're talking about. I've said this before, but mine is "I love you." If I noticed that my head was telling me mean things about myself, I would just say, "I love you, I love you, I love you," and repeat it until that had passed.
Yeah.
And I don't really believe in the, like, replace it with something that's the opposite of that.
Yes, me
I
neither.
hear that though a lot, like, that people will say, "Oh, if you have a negative thought, tell yourself the opposite thing." Like, if you're standing in front of the mirror and you're saying, "Ugh, I look so fat," instead say, "You look so fit, you look so beautiful." It's like a reverse psychology thing, but for me, that always just felt like kind of lying to myself.
Mhm. Yeah, I was going to say that I have been really trying to nail this point into a lot of people lately that I don't necessarily believe that everything negative we say is bad. I
Mm,
don't like to be defining these things as like good or
mhm,
bad. Whatever you're thinking
mhm,
is just a thought.
mhm,
They're all just thoughts.
mhm,
So, how can you welcome them in more and open up a space inside of you for more compassion towards those thoughts?
mhm,
Because I think that sometimes the longer we push those down and down, the longer term effects we actually have from those, whether that shows up later in a chronic illness or
mhm,
if it shows up later in panic or anxiety. So when you're having thoughts like that, instead of going, oh, no, I don't want to have that. No, I'm beautiful. I'm strong. I'm smart. I like to just acknowledge that they're there, say, I see you, I hear you, and thank you for showing up, but today you're not welcome. Like literally talking to those thoughts in your mind. And sometimes a way to come back from that is doing a mantra, acknowledge that they're there, thank you, and then hold your heart. I love you. I love you. Mine is I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. And creating that as just a ritual,
mhm,
not just doing it when you're having the negative talk, but having that as like a morning practice for you,
mhm,
like waking up and saying, I love you so much, or smiling at yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror. It's an important practice, even if the thoughts aren't there.
mhm,
So that is my guidance. Welcome the thoughts, acknowledge that they're there. Those things are wanting to be heard and seen, and you've probably been ignoring them for a long time.
mhm,
So, how can you open compassion and ask them to take a back seat?
mhm. Yeah, and just a reminder too, I love that. Just a reminder that you're allowed to reparent yourself. So a lot of
Mm,
times these thoughts, this negative self-talk comes up as expectations we've created of ourselves at a very young age. Like, if you're having talks about worthlessness or that you're going to be abandoned or that
mm,
your body isn't good enough, all of that kind of stuff, that probably sprouted pretty early, like
yeah.
8 to 12 ish. And it's okay if that doesn't if ring true for you, but those are times when we can go back and hold our inner children and say, honey, I love you. You are absolutely worthy of love. Even if you're a little gordita, like if you're
Yes.
chubby when you're young, or had farkle teeth, or whatever it is that you're still holding on to. If you felt that you had to be a perfectionist and get everything right so that your work was good and people valued you,
Mm,
like look at really what the roots of those things are, because it can help to also uproot them and say,
mm.
okay, whoa, back then I was a kid. I
Yeah.
was doing my best. I was so freaking cute. And when I talk negatively to myself, I'm talking negatively to her. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't go up to an 11 or a 12-year-old and say, hey, you fat ass, like you suck big time.
Yeah, even thinking about like if you were hearing a friend talk about themselves in that way, how would you want to comfort them
Mhm.
and welcoming that same energy in for yourself?
Mhm.
And I love what you're talking about inner children, because thinking of this on a scale of this method that I really love called internal family systems, in thinking about the thoughts in our mind, usually those thoughts are protectors protecting these sort of inner children that have been wounded in the past.
Mhm.
So maybe there were times when you were like, I'm so cute, I love my body. And someone was like, no, you're not.
Mhm.
And then this little protector will show up inside of you saying, well, don't think those things again because you were hurt when you did that before.
Mhm.
So, really, just kind of getting to the root of those things. And, like you said, just honoring and reparenting and
Mhm.
unlearning what our inner children have known from before.
Mhm.
So, I love that.
Yeah, and if this is a question, if maybe you're listening to our podcast for the first time, make sure that you listen to the episode called How to Love Your Body. I think it's like episode 27, 26 or 27.
Yeah, 26 or 27. 26, I
Maybe
think.
28.
I don't, nope, not 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's How to Love Your Body, and we go through in detail other ways to really help uproot this stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
I think that was great. Thank you so much for whoever wrote in that question.
She wrote us an
And
email, which you're all welcome to do as well. And we
yes.
do love our questions, and we prioritize them on our Patreon. So
Mhm.
we answer a lot of Q's there.
Yes, we do. So
We're sweaty.
we I think we should just address it.
Okay.
We have taken multiple breaks this episode. The first one came in the form of me almost having a panic attack. We actually
Yes.
did end up stopping.
Yes.
Lauren gave me some food to eat. We had to relax. We had to chit chat for a little bit. Then we came back. We did a little bit of How to Love Your Body. And then Lauren needed a break.
Yeah, because you know what? It actually can be, while it's so exciting, it can be a lot of energy to record every single week.
Yeah.
And so today I was
Especially
just
this week because we've recorded twice.
right. We recorded twice. So I give it up to people. I also like to say this. I am not a business person. At least that's not an identity that I've claimed. And
Yeah.
so sometimes being on a schedule, while it's so important for me, I can have a lot of resistance come up.
Yeah.
And we really need to record today. And I'm actually really excited for our topic. But our parents are coming in this weekend. So it's like, we don't really have a choice. We're doing it today because we want to talk about this.
Yep.
And it's important. And I just needed some energy.
Yeah. So we did.
What did we do?
We swamped
We swamped.
in terms of the pussy book.
Yes, we swamped.
So I've mentioned this a couple times now, we got our energy out through a method, the book called Pussy Reclamation. They call it swamping, where
Yeah.
you turn on songs and you are seen in exactly how you need to be seen. Lauren and I were stomping around like little kids.
We were like, I don't want to.
Stupid,
Stupid. This is stupid. It's hard to be an adult.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Putting our tongues out, and then we turned on a sexy song and we had a sexy dance.
Yeah. We twerked. We looked at ourselves in the mirror. We spanked each other.
Yeah.
We did all the things you would think.
Yeah, I do a lot of my mornings that way, alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
I used to do that more when I lived alone, but now I'm like, I don't want to wake Shane up if he's asleep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start doing it. I'm calling it back.
You can close your door in here and just do a little dancing. I do it while I'm doing my makeup. I do
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel good. Sometimes I dance with Rudy. Sometimes I'm sexier. It's just
Yeah.
fun to welcome my mornings like that.
Well, and I actually think this is a great transition into what I wanted to talk about today,
Mm.
which is we well, we already sort of introduced it, is that we're talking about how to stop hating men.
Mm.
And part of that, I think, is really checking in with yourself right now. And while you may not consciously be thinking, I hate men, check in and see what your attitude toward the masculine is.
Mm.
Because I think so many of us would be like, no, I don't hate men. Some of us may claim that we do,
Yeah.
but it's like, check in with yourself and actually be real about how you feel toward the masculine.
Mm.
Because I think that a lot of us have, I would say 99% of women have internalized rage
Yes.
and
Internalized
have
rage.
that like feminine rage inside of you, because there are a lot of reasons to be angry toward the masculine, right? Like,
Yes.
so many of us have been assaulted, wounded,
Yes. 1 in 3.
manipulated. Yeah, I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
many of us, so many of our fathers weren't there for us, or when they were, there was abuse involved,
Mm-hmm.
or they were absent, or they left us at a certain time. Like, I
Yeah.
really feel like as a generation, and probably, I don't know if our mothers have this same wound, but likely that we just haven't had the best representation of the masculine.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of rage.
So much rage. I also want to just put a little snippet. Maybe you'll agree with this, maybe not. But I feel like there has actually been a transition into thinking that women need to be playing the more masculine role
Mhm.
in terms of like having the good job,
Yeah.
supporting, being the one to hold space. It feels like the more we grow in our independence as women, the more we actually are sort of filling that role in the relationships and then also having rage about it.
Yeah, we're exhausted
Yeah.
and we feel resentful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much here, and it's such an important topic, and there's no wonder that we had a swamp before this, because
Yeah.
there really like I just want to say that I worked so hard before I was even in a relationship with Shane toward not hating the masculine, like letting the
Mm.
masculine in. And then when he and I were together, even though it had nothing to do with Shane, so much was coming up still that I
Mm.
would project at him because of past experiences.
Yeah.
And so it's like this thing that we need to be aware of. And I want to offer today a couple of ways that we can start to harmonize the masculine and the feminine within ourselves.
Mm.
Because what happens, I think, is when we have rage that is unprocessed toward the masculine, and we either overtly or covertly hate men,
Yes.
we're also hating 50% of ourselves.
Oof.
Because,
Great point.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, the masculine in us needs care and tender affection as well.
Mm.
And when we're projecting that kind of anger and rage outwardly, what's happening is that's inside of us as well.
Mm.
It's the yin and the yang. You can't express it without ingesting some of it,
Wow.
you know?
Yeah. I guess I've never even really thought about it in that way, and it couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrote down some things.
Let's see it.
Okay, so first, and I didn't even tell you this, Camille,
Yeah.
but in order to face this, first, what I just said is check in with yourself about
Mm.
how you really feel about this. If you've been harmed physically, mentally, emotionally by men, check in with yourself. If you've been harmed by your father, by your stepfather, by your grandfather, check in with yourself. If you have rage that's not even yours to have, for example, if you've seen your mother treated in a particular way by men, if you've seen your grandmother treated in a particular way by men,
Mhm.
anybody treated in a particular way by men, check in with yourself. How do you honestly feel about that?
Mm.
Once you sit with it, and there are probably things coming up where it's like, okay, well, this man was amazing. This man was really fucked up. the way I view men at large in society is either fucked up or good or neutral, whatever. Just check in with yourself.
Mm.
And if there's rage there, if you feel a boiling, a fear, a frustration, a I never want to date again, I never want to love
Mm.
again, all men are the worst. They're going to hurt me in some way, so I keep my distance. All men are abandoners, or,
Mm.
abandoners. I don't even know if that's a
Mhm.
word, but all of that. That living inside of you, we have to find a place where that actually isn't fully true.
Mm.
And if you can find a place where it's not true, you can release it.
Mm.
So any good man you've ever known, any good representation of a man on TV that you feel, oh, wow, okay, that's how I want to be treated. Any man you can envision, any way
Mm.
that you could imagine you wanted to be treated, it
Mm.
exists.
Mhm.
And so allowing that to kind of come into your psyche too, and recognizing I don't hate men, I hate the way that I've been treated by men, or I hate the way my mother was treated.
Mm. Separating that. Yeah, that
Separating
is
that
really important.
and expressing the rage.
Hmm.
So I don't feel like you can be fully embodied in your feminine until you have felt rage. Until you have let rage permeate every single one of your cells, until you've sweated out, cried it out, punched it out,
Screamed it out.
screamed it out, like sobbed, wept. Until that has happened, I don't think we can fully embody healthy feminine.
Mm. Painted it out, sang it out,
Yeah.
danced it out. I
Uh-huh.
I just want any creative form
Uh-huh.
too feels to me like expressing it out of your body.
Yeah.
Journaled about it, like
Yeah.
sang about it, cried. It's like it has to make it out of your body in
Mhm.
some way.
It has to make it out,
Yeah.
because when it's inside, it feels, when you imagine rage that's stuck in a box, it feels tight, it feels chaotic, it feels like something that needs to explode. When we
Mm.
have that in us, there's no way that we can embody true divinity until it's exploded, until it's expressed.
Yeah, can I want to make a comment too. I feel like the more we bottle that in, it's almost like the experience where when we don't like how our parent was and we reject it so deeply, we become the parent.
Right.
The more we reject and hold on to that anger, I feel like we're also calling in that type of
I
experience.
know.
We're calling in multiple times being treated wrongly by men or choosing the wrong man, because it's like it's so deep in us, we don't even realize
Mhm.
that that's what we're manifesting.
Oh my god, I'm so glad you just said that, because I just have an experience that relates so deeply with that.
Mm,
I hated, hated this one particular type of man.
I know. I know what kind of man
And
it
it's the kind of
is.
man that always had privilege based on their looks. It's like
Mhm.
this blonde, light skinned man with blue eyes, muscular, kind of tall, somebody that I feel like could get away with anything in the legal system.
Mhm.
Like somebody that I just see and
Mhm.
I'm like, fuck you. I know that everything you've ever done in your life, even if you've been through some shit, that you just get to be on top. Like, no matter
Yes.
what. It's like you
Yes.
can hurt somebody, you can assault somebody, and in the legal system, they're just going to pretty much look favorably upon you.
Yes.
I had so much rage toward that kind of a man. The way they might treat a woman, the way they might speak about women behind closed doors, directly to their faces, to
Mm.
their fraternity brothers. You get the idea.
Oh, I get the idea.
And I rejected that so much that guess who I was sleeping with?
Those fucking
Those
people.
fucking people.
God damn it.
Those fucking people. And
Yes.
it was like, it
It was
was
almost
so
like this
weird.
power thing where
It was
it's
a
like,
power thing.
yeah.
Yes, where I was like
So interesting.
calling them literally into my body and
Mhm.
like holding so tightly onto this. I hate this style, except for I'm like enamored by it too.
Mm.
This like power of it.
Mhm.
And so it's really interesting how that kind of a thing, like, I know that for me it was true, and
Yeah.
for some people, it's like you have so much rage toward your abusive father that you continue to call in abusive partners who are teaching the same lesson.
Yes, where the mind goes, the energy flows.
Yes. And so
Mhm.
what we must do is release this
Mm.
and recognize it, call it for what it is. So many of us can look at our dating history and be like, "Oh yeah, I call in this similar kind of person." But really look at your own patterning. Like, what are you holding on to that's so captivating? Because rage is captivating.
Yeah,
It's a strong energy
it
force.
really
So
is.
when
The
it's in
darkness in
you,
it. Yeah.
yeah, there's like this feeling of it. And I'm totally ranting right now and I'm liking it.
I'm liking it too.
Because what I'm wanting to say too is that rage is such a powerful, powerful force, and it's not bad. To have rage is
Mm.
really important.
Yes.
Rage changes our social structure, rage changes society, rage changes us. We
Mhm.
have it for a reason.
Yes.
It's just that when it goes unexpressed, it's hurting you and it's hurting the world because you continue to call in those people that are not serving you, and it's
Mm.
perpetuating what you saw in your mother and your grandmother and all of these women around you. So
Yeah.
you have to cut that shit off.
100%.
Yeah.
And I also like to think of it in this way. If as a population of women, anyone who identifies as a woman, if we are constantly putting our energy towards thinking all men are terrible, that is also perpetuating the problem.
Mhm.
Like, I just think about it in my own life, and I remember where I had this little moment of, I hate men.
Mhm.
And you passed me a video by Brene Brown about living through your heart, living
Mhm.
through vulnerability. And I was thinking, yeah, honestly, my hating men is stemming from the fact that I'm not able to be vulnerable
Mm.
and call in the right type of person.
Mhm.
I was calling in, same thing, those like hot, stupid guys who like aren't giving me any attention. I was like wanting their attention so badly.
Mhm.
So in turn, I had to become more vulnerable and allow that piece of me to release in order to think to myself, I actually want to call in a beautiful relationship with a man who fulfills me. I believe there are men like that,
Mhm.
in hoping that putting that energy out is calling men up
Mhm.
instead of pushing them down and saying, "You're all just shitty, so you don't deserve the love either."
Right.
Welcoming a space where we can call each other up.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we allow that kind of person to bloom. And I'm not
Yes.
saying, what I want to be clear about is that we're not bypassing any of the shit that has happened
A
to us,
100%.
or bypassing any of the men that have treated women horribly over the years. But what we're saying is, when you can release this from your body, call it what it is. Say, I'm having this pattern of rage
Mhm.
toward the masculine and I'm not releasing it.
Mm.
When we as women decide, you know what, I actually don't want that narrative to be true. I don't believe that that narrative is true. There are some shitty men.
Yes.
There are some shitty men, and they were once babies too. Like, they are victims
Mhm.
of the same society that we are. And so,
Mhm.
not to pardon their actions, but to say, like, can we see them with compassion? Can we forgive
Mhm.
our fathers?
Mm.
And that is
Yeah.
my next point.
Forgiveness
Forgiveness
is
is
more
more
than
than
saying
saying
sorry.
sorry. Okay,
From Just Friends. I would call it a classic.
just friends.
It's a really good movie and it's funny.
I was just friends with Shane and now we're getting married.
Rawr.
Okay,
Okay. On a serious
forgiveness.
note.
Yeah. Forgiving your father is really important. Seeing him as a human being. And obviously, you're on your own road to forgiveness. So if your dad was a really horrible person to you, I understand if you want to hold some resentment toward him, but the only person that that's hurting at this point is you. I have a book recommendation here.
Mm.
My dear friend Jordan. You can follow him at Logos Jones. I
Mm.
was in his music video.
Yes,
If
love
you haven't
Jordan.
seen my music video, we're gonna link it in this episode. I was
Wow.
in a music video, and it was really fun this year, for my friend Jordan. So anyway, he recommended this book to me called Loving What Is,
Mm.
and it is by Byron Katie. Maybe I suggested this on the last episode. I've said the words Byron Katie before
You
on a
said
mic.
Byron Katie last week with a little quote.
Okay, so her book, Loving What is really helpful if you have really deep trauma from your parents, like
Mm.
sexual trauma stuff. If it's really deep, reading Byron Katie's Loving What Is really helpful. Her methodology for getting through that and getting to a point where you can kind of see how everything in your life was exactly what it needed to be to make you who you are today is
Wow.
really great. So, Loving What Is by Byron
Okay.
Katie. I highly recommend it.
That's actually one I haven't read yet.
Hmm.
So, when we're doing this process of forgiving, I know that this is a process that we complete alone because everybody has different levels of trauma. Everybody has different levels of what their body feels like it has the capacity to do. But where can people start on forgiveness?
Hmm. Well, honestly, beginning on forgiveness is also a lot about forgiving yourself and having compassion for yourself for little things. Like, I feel like forgiveness is a process that starts within and then you can extend it without. So when you have compassion for yourself for things in your life that maybe you've messed up or times when you haven't been perfect, times when you've
Mhm.
hurt people, times when you were surviving and maybe you did things that are less than favorable, forgiving yourself for those and having compassion for yourself and just seeing where you can begin giving people the benefit of the doubt and expressing that compassion outward. So, a way that I began doing this and letting go of a lot of resentment for little things first was like during road rage. So, somebody cuts me off and I can take that as a slight, like, oh my God, this fucking idiot, all the road rage things
Mm,
that you can do. And instead, I just began convincing myself that that person was late to the hospital because their wife is giving birth.
I love doing
Just
stuff like that.
immediately giving the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, I'm assuming goodwill. I'm assuming goodwill. I'm
Mm,
assuming. And so starting like that and snowballing it into, I'm assuming that my parents, I'm remembering now that they're human and that they were
yeah,
just adults with kids who are now were our ages now when they had
wild.
kids. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like seeing your parents as not just your parents, but as people in the world and
Mm,
letting go of some of that stuff that you can say, okay, wow, my dad was abused. My grandfather was abused. It's this long lineage of, and I'm using like pretty extreme examples, but it's a long lineage of people being hurt and then hurting others. And not that they didn't know any better. We don't have to use that language, but just saying that they were using the tools that they had at the time. And that's what happened. That is what happened. So no matter how much you hate your dad, hate your ex-boyfriend, it's not going to change the outcome of what occurred. And so
yeah.
seeing where you can forgive, not for them, you don't even have to tell them that you've forgiven them unless you want to in a letter or something, but for you, because holding on to that anger and that rage toward another person is just holding on to it within your own body.
And we are then passing that down to the next generation
Mhm.
energetically or by our body literally giving birth to someone who is then instilled with our trauma.
Right.
I think generational patterning is actually really beneficial for this peace and forgiveness. And I think, like you said, there's no excuse for it. There's never an excuse for the way that you were treated. But recognizing the patterning in people, it opens up a new level of compassion for humans in general.
Mhm.
and I've been through some pretty traumatic incidents, and almost everybody has, to be
Mhm.
honest, especially as women, man. Just like 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted. I mean, really think about that. And also, something that kind of helped me was thinking, man, what kind of childhood did that person have where they grew up not having that type of moral standard?
Right.
Like really thinking, wow, even if it's something in their karmic history, just knowing that like they're a person and no baby is born with that type of mentality. So, what happened to them where that experience seemed okay to
Mhm.
them? I mean, and I just think about the suffering in the other person, like, no no soul, no body is wanting to damage another person in that way. So what suffering subconsciously are they enduring,
Mhm.
and just extending compassion and thinking of them as just they once were a child,
Right.
and how can I create forgiveness in my body so that I can let go? Like you don't have to hold that pain, you
Yeah,
know.
and I think that's an important point is like you deserve to let that go.
Yeah.
You deserve it. You deserve to forgive other people. You deserve to forgive the masculine. Not that you're going to walk around with rose colored glasses and just feel like, oh, nobody's ever going to hurt me again. Like you can still make good judgment calls or make, work on judgment and like calling, not judgment in like a judging way, but work on your ability to decipher what you want and what you don't want, what serves you and what doesn't serve you.
Mhm.
But you deserve to forgive the people who have hurt you. You deserve to want healthy relationships and healthy love and healthy friendships with the masculine.
Mhm.
That's something that you can have in this lifetime, regardless of your sexual orientation, whether you want to have sex with men or not. Having a relationship with the masculine that feels wonderful and supportive is totally available.
Mm.
And you
Mhm.
deserve it.
Yeah, you really do deserve it.
Hmm.
And the people, and I feel like the men who are really in their masculine and making efforts and making women feel safe and like supported and held also really deserve it.
Yeah, they
Cuz I know
do.
some great men, like,
Yeah.
and
And men who like want to be better men and who are
yes.
trying their best to like undo the wounds of their past. And when you
Exactly.
have women who are holding men to that kind of standard and saying like this is the kind of man that I want to be with, men do
Mhm.
the work. I really believe they do.
Yeah,
It's
I do
wonderful
too.
because they're coming from a generation of like we can just talk even about our own generation. Like we really have no, in the West at least, no initiation ceremonies or no like passing of the torch for masculinity. Women get their periods. And so biologically, we have, I mean, most women get their periods biologically we kind of go into this new phase of our lives. We hear a lot about the mother, the maiden, and the crone, or the maiden, the mother, and the crone.
Mhm.
We hear a lot about that kind of talk when it comes to women. Not that it's perfect, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in a lot of other societies, boys have initiation ceremonies into being men. They do like week-long vision quests to see what their role is in the tribe. Like these are ancient practices and stuff, but men were brought up by men in the tribe, and that's sort of how they went from being the warriors and the like conquer archetype into the provider, the supporter, the beautiful like adult masculine. Was they actually had ceremonies for that, and we don't have that shit. We don't talk to boys about how to become men,
Mhm.
and that's been lost on our generation for years, or on our society for years.
Yeah. It
so
really has.
so yeah, we're a society of people who are pretty lost right now.
Yeah. I also like to think about this in the way of like, I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for people either. It's
Yeah,
so
it's
hard.
hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a difficult subject. In my opinion, I just want to be able to think that people can change for the best. That's that's what I long for in our society. I
Mhm.
think of like if I've ever done something to hurt somebody, and I have. I've
Mhm.
done things with my words, of course, that have hurt people, and my desire as a person was to be better, like to apologize for mistakes, just I wanted a chance to show people that I could be better.
Mhm.
And mine were, of course, in like these smaller ways, but I'm just trying to think about too, like if we give the people the chance and the space to grow, I just wonder how far that could take the masculine generate, this the men in the world right now. If we gave the opportunity to forgive, open compassion, and like show them how to be a fucking man.
Yeah.
Like if they would take it upon themselves to grow, if we could all just like support each other as a unit, as like one connected being.
Yeah. I wanna
And then
take
I'm also like, burn them all. Like
yeah,
I
burn them all. Yeah.
but not man hating, but you know what I mean. The
Yeah.
people who are repeat offenders.
Yeah, repeat offenders. Just
Yeah.
cut their body in half. Okay, but what I also want to say is forgiveness. I want to get back to forgiveness, and now I can't get that song out of
You
my
do. I
head.
know.
And that's okay. I actually just kind of want to have a conversation about this. We're not the authority figures on like how to save the masculine.
No.
We're saying that in our bodies it felt good to let go of hating men, and this is how we did it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what feels good to talk about is
Mm,
just this is one of those things where I can understand how people get to a point where they hate men and where they're afraid of men and afraid of
so do I.
dick, like in general. It's scary.
So do
It can be
I.
scary. But what I wanted to get back to about forgiveness is that it doesn't mean forgiving and then welcoming people back into your life necessarily. And I think
Exactly.
that's really important to say
Mm,
is like the we don't have to say I forgive you and I want a relationship with you. I
boom.
forgive you and like I want you back in my life. Let's begin texting. I'm talking about this is something that comes from inside of you and whether that needs to be crying and almost like apologizing to them that they couldn't show up better. You know,
Mhm.
like I just guess I've had experiences like this healing body shame and stuff where I've cried so hard for mom, and this is kind of personal actually. Hi mom, if you're listening, I love you and I think this is okay that we say it, but I was really wounded by mom's body image,
Mhm.
and I've just had times over my healing journey where I've wept for mom and like really cried for her and been like, I'm so sorry that you couldn't love yourself like you needed to. And then I learned from that.
Yeah.
And in the same way, like, I'm so sorry for the fathers who probably really deep down want to be good fathers and they don't know how, or they think they're not worthy of it. They think they're not worthy of loving relationships. And so they really royally fuck up. Like, I'm so sorry for their soul. And
Yeah.
not in a pity way, but in an empathy and a compassion way. That's possible. You don't ever have to tell them that, but you can have moments of release.
Yes. And the same thing comes for perpetrators of violence,
Mhm.
You in order to heal, it's actually almost a necessity that it becomes this what is that word? Acceptance. It's the blank acceptance.
I don't know.
I can't remember. It's something I worked on in therapy. Maybe it'll come to me in a little bit.
Mhm.
But it's basically the thank you and fuck you.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I can take that experience for what it was, have forgiveness, but still fuck you, like, and
Right.
still we're going to be at a distance forever.
Right.
That's okay. It's just welcoming the space in your heart for the forgiveness, breaking down the barrier, and being able to walk forward in life without carrying that burden also.
Mhm.
They already emotionally, spiritually, and on a karmic level have to carry that burden. You don't have to.
Right, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of thing is also can be a really big challenge because when we decide to do this work, what it also means is that we have to face what our excuses are for not being able to be present in our lives. We have to face ourselves and be like, oh, wait a second. If I let this go, then what identities do I have to let go of?
Mm.
If I've been a victim of child abuse, if I was abandoned by my father, and that's kind of been where I source my pain and my identities that I've formed around that, if I haven't had to show up for other people because I was wounded and I was abandoned, when we face this and release it and let go, we also have to let parts of ourselves die, and parts of ourselves that no longer serve us, the identities that we've been clinging on to, we also get to let those go. And that can be really challenging.
Especially in a world full of people who identify with their pain.
Right. Yeah. And it's not our fault. It's not necessarily your fault
No.
because it's really I actually wanted to do a episode on this about like the victim. We hear a lot about victim mentality, you're not a victim. But also, I feel like we don't talk enough about really feeling your pain, and that when you were a kid and things happened to you, and or anytime and things happen to you, you were a victim. What do you mean? Like have been a victim of abuse or
Yeah.
violence in ways. It's like, well, geez, I'm a victim. Like, yes, I was. And so accepting that and accepting I was really scared. Like that was terrible. I hated that. I like didn't know what to do after. I couldn't tell anybody. Like, whatever it was, allowing yourself to feel that, to feel the fear that you experience, to feel the pain and to let it move through you so you can let go of it.
Yes.
That's what we're expressing, because if you listen to our last episode, or if you really listen to anything that I say, a lot of what Camille says is about coming into presence and being able to be present in your body.
Mm.
All of these things hold us back from presence. When we have resentment, when we have anger, when we have rage, when we have grudges, or anything
Mm.
that we're holding on to, it's really hard for the body to find presence.
Yeah, because those things keep coming up as it
Mhm.
the identity almost becomes an excuse for us. And it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I see how this happened in my relationship, but it's because I'm a victim of
Right.
assault."
Totally.
And you're just
Totally.
like, "Okay, how can we move on and become present in our life if we are clinging to the past identities and
Mhm.
constantly bringing it up as,
Right.
you know, replacement for just I was not being present in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah.
I wasn't fully acting in self. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
There is a difference. It's a lot of forgive, claim, release. That's what
Mhm.
it feels like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no linear, as we always talk about, there's no linear
Like a
method
three-step
for this.
process.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no three-step process, but there are ways to just notice, like I I like to center it a lot in what we talked about last episode. How do you want to feel toward men? How do you want to feel with the masculine? Is it that you want to feel safe, celebrated, supported, sexy, expressed, like seen, heard? What is it that, how do you want to feel around the masculine? And
Mm.
if you don't feel that way now, if there's a lot of insecurity or hiding or mistrust, like not trusting them or keeping a distance, that's okay, because however you got there is probably really valid.
Mhm.
And also, what can you do to bring yourself closer to how you'd like to feel?
Yes.
And so that's what we're offering today, is how can you claim your current status in your life and move toward a more peaceful existence within your body,
Yes.
you know?
That was so beautifully said.
Thank you. Maybe we can make it our beginning clip.
Yeah. Maybe that will be it.
Sometimes it just comes through.
Yeah. That channeled and it hit. That landed.
I'll put my glasses
Yeah.
back on.
Yeah.
It's because I took my glasses off.
Yeah. So this was another episode where I feel we're kind of bouncing all over. And I'm just really liking these episode topics lately because it does feel like there are so many moving parts. And also, it just keeps coming back to this central topic for us, which is just finding more presence. Like, if we can find compassion, if we can find forgiveness, if we can stop identifying as a man hater,
Mm-hmm.
how much more present can we live in our bodies?
Mm-hmm.
How can we find the space to walk around and think, I am you, you are me? We are,
It's all perfect.
yes, it's all perfect. And um not in a toxic positivity way, but in a, I have worked through this shit so that I can live in a more peaceful center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and recognizing that the things that have happened to us, while we wouldn't have chosen them, it is really a unique experience, because if the goal is peace in our body, and the goal is centered, and the goal is release of pain and suffering and attachment, if that's the goal, which is my goal,
It's also my
and
goal.
and if it's not your goal, that's okay, but it's my goal. If that's my goal, then I have to assume that everything that has happened to me so far in this life, everything that I've participated in, any harm that's been done to me, has been perfect in my life. Because
Mhm.
it means that I'm here with this experience and with this survival rate. I'm here. And so I can work with that and harness those lessons and share that with the world, or share it with myself. I can be in service to others. I can journal about it. I can be here with that experience. And what is life if not an experience?
Yeah.
So,
I
geez.
was Yeah.
So there's nothing toxic positive about that.
No, I had this same conversation with a client today, actually, about expressing, or about the fact that everything in our life, nothing, and I'm talking about this as a person who's survived, or, sexual assault. That's
Yeah.
a big deal. And also, nothing in life is good or bad, defined as good or bad. It just is what it is. That was part of my experience. How can I channel that into still continuing to be present, still continuing to move forward and shine light for others,
Right.
you know?
And when the goal is presence, when our eye is on the presence prize, all of this will get uprooted. Nothing gets left behind. When we're present, it's like, ow, that fucking hurts. Oh my God, it's awful. It's awful. I hate it. But I'm in it. I'm in it. And that feeling, that ow, 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 is the rebirth. It's right before the
That's
final
growth.
put. It's growth.
That's growth.
It's growth.
Yeah.
And so this episode today, and probably our episodes in the future, I feel like we're kind of
On this
evolving
roll.
in that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because this is what I really wanted from our podcast, honestly, is to go in this direction of using all these different examples, not hating men, how to have better sex, whatever the topic is, how to heal from trauma, etc. And it really comes back to, how do we shed and shed and shed and surrender and surrender and surrender so that we can be present for our lives for the maximum amount of minutes that we're alive? How can we do that? And it's coming back to that thread, that thread, that thread.
Yeah.
That's the value. That's the whole story. And we need to be reminded over and over again. That's what a spiritual teacher does for you. That's what a Buddhist teacher or a Dzogchen teacher, that's what they do, is they remind you again and again and again, come back to center, come back to center, come back to center. And trust me, we need to hear it almost every second.
We do.
So, welcome to the Sex Den podcast. This is what we're talking about.
We love you all.
We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Oh! Today's episode is sponsored by the one and only Amber Bath Bathing Essentials. To get the best scrubs, salts, salves, body butters in the world, I think. Do you think?
I think.
Yeah. Go to amberbath.com and use the code WOLFPACK at checkout for 20% off your order and a free little gift from your dead mothers.
And when we're talking about the best products in the world, what we mean is literally between 2 and 4 ingredients in all of the products. No water, no synthetic fragrances, no parabens, no sulfates, no bullshit that's in these products. They are delicious, pure, handcrafted in California. And Camille and I literally, these were our first jobs, was going to farmers markets and schlepping product.
Yes, because the
So
owner is the original den mother, aka our mother.
yes. So if you're into locally grown, handcrafted, family run, women power businesses, check out amberbath.com. You'll never regret it.